Welcome to my YouTube channel, Dr. J Official. And today we are going to talk about publication process. So, what are the key things to be mindful of when you're ready with your work and you plan to publish? And one of the key factors is which journal you are planning to publish. And when we think of journal, we always look for the impact factor. However, I would like to emphasize that if you are new in research, the key is to get it published. It doesn't matter whether the impact factor is low or high. It is basically the articles in that journal, whether they are getting cited or not. And more the citations, better is the impact factor. So if a journal has a high impact factor, then the chances of getting it published is low because it is very competitive. So, like for early career researchers, it is about publishing your work, and that is the key. Impact factor doesn't matter, but what matters is that it should not be a predatory journal, the fake journals. There are many around. So make sure that the journal you're planning to submit is genuine, and you can check about its about whether it is a real journal or whether it's not predatory. Look into the BIOLS list, or even check on ResearchGate. Finally, the aim is to publish, and especially for the earlier career researchers where they want to get onto the publication ladder. So make sure that you are publishing your work, even if the impact factor is low. It doesn't matter as long as the journal is genuine and it is peer reviewed. So the work you've done has to be seen by your peers, has to be reviewed, has to be critically reviewed. Then you can determine whether the work you've done is actually useful, it is actually novel, and it is worth publishing. That can only be ascertained when the journal you're submitting is a peer-reviewed journal. It is stressful. It can be you are going under scrutiny, but it is important that the work you're publishing is useful. And I think that is where the key is: peer-reviewed journals. Make sure that the publication, the articles you are planning to submit, is in a peer-reviewed journal. Now, these days, very few journals will accept publications and they will not charge. But most of the journals these days, they ask the authors to pay the article processing charge. Now that can be very high, very hefty. So again, when you're looking for journals, there are still journals where you don't have to pay the article processing charge. So make sure that you're finding a journal where you don't have to pay at all, or you have to pay less. Sometimes it can come from your study budget or research budget, whatever. But there are still journals where, with a decent impact factor, and a peer-reviewed journal, they don't ask for any charges from the authors. Make sure that when once you have figured out which journal you're planning to publish, check their requirements, the word count, the referencing style, because the word count would vary depending upon the article. If it is a review article, I think it's between 4,000 and 5,000, but it depends on the journal. So make sure that you're aware of the word count as well, whilst you are working on your manuscript. So look, identifying a journal simultaneously happens when you are working on your manuscript. So make sure that it is done simultaneously and you are aware of the requirement of the journal, especially the word count and the referencing style, which I've already spoken about. It depends. Some journals, they prefer the Vancouver style. Some prefer the American Harvard style. So you have to then do the referencing style accordingly, and they are different. So again, but that is the key: word count and referencing style. When you're publishing a journal, they ask for some key statements. So when on your manuscript, make sure that you mention this, the conflict of interest. If there isn't any, so then just mention conflict of interest, none. That's it. But make sure that that statement is there. Whether, obviously, if you've done a clinical trial, there would be participants included. So before even you've started the study, it would have gone through the ethics. So if there was an ethics approval sought, make sure that that is mentioned, that statement is there, that ethical approval was obtained and approved. So ethics requirement statement is also important. Whether any funding was applied for a particular work, that also needs to be included, that statement. And the author contribution. So if there are multiple authors for that particular article, the contribution of every author is very important, right from the conceptualization to the literature search, data collection, analysis, manuscript writing, critical review of the writing. So that author contribution is important, and that is the statement which every journal would ask. Now, every journal, I think it's kind of a mandatory requirement that you need to have your ORCID ID, and that is easy. You just Google it. You click on the ORCID website, register it. Very straightforward. But make sure you've got your ID, because once you have it, and once the article is accepted, it is automatically registered on the ORCID ID. ORCID ID is kind of your research portfolio, basically. So once you have this, and the journal accepts this, then it automatically gets into the ORCID ID, and then you will have your portfolio, the list of publications you've had. It is very easy for you to share it with others, as part of your portfolio. So I think it's important to get your ORCID ID. Every journal requires a title page along with your manuscript. Title page is important. And that obviously includes the title of the article, your full name, qualifications, affiliation, where are you working now, whether it is the university, hospital, whatever. So that has to be included. Your research interest. It's kind of your little biography, that, what your research interests are. So I think that is important to, include in the title page, and your contribution in this particular work. And the conflict of interest statement or ethics, which I've mentioned previously. So the process. Now, what I'm going to mention now may not be the exact, the process in every journal, but this is usually what you will face, what you will come across once you've submitted. And this is like general for all. There might be subtle changes, but usually this is what you see most of the time in most of the journals. So the first step is the journal admin processing. So once you've submitted, the journal admin will look into the requirements, whether it was the word count has been included. It is within the required word count. Appropriate references were included. Number of references as well as the key. Because in some journals would say, if it is a review article, the maximum number of references they would accept is 50. So again, it varies. So the admin would look into that, the references, the style of referencing, the word count, if you've included tables or figures, whether it is according to the journal guidelines. So they will look into that. And once they feel that, yes, it is appropriate, it meets the requirement of the journal, then it is seen by the editor. So your article, before it goes for peer review, it is checked by the editor, whether this particular work is appropriate for publication in that particular journal, because every journal has their own, target audience as well. So like if you're thinking of dementia, then in dementia as well. So like, there are, whether it is you're focusing on dementia management, or whether you're focusing on dementia assessment, diagnosis, or whether it is about dementia awareness. So there are journals which would only, where the target audience is even general public who are non-medics. So then they may not accept articles which are too technical and a lot into neuroscience, and also so there are separate journals for that. So the role of the editor is to look into that, whether it meets the requirement of the journal. Sometimes, even at this stage, the review by the editor, they may reject it, and that is called desk rejection, where the editor has looked into, but it doesn't meet the criteria, and they will respond saying that, we are unable to accept this article. So it can be rejected at this point. If the editor feels that yes, it meets the criteria, then the journal will start searching for potential reviewers. At most of the time, it is 2 or 3, minimum 2, maximum 3. Then once the journal have identified these reviewers, then it goes under the review. So your articles is under review. This takes around 2 to 3 months for the reviewers to look into and then send their review, their feedback back to the editor. So most of the time when you submit your article, it's seen by the editor, reviewed by the reviewers. Then you get the first major revision where they give you a list of feedback. What are the areas you need to work on now? And then you work on it, and then you resubmit. Then it goes back again, it again goes back to the reviewers who had reviewed previously, the same reviewers. And then again, it goes through the scrutiny, and then they send you another list of minor revision. So the key here is, even if it goes to the major revision, which means that the editor is interested in your article, but they need some changes. So that is why it goes through the series of reviews. And first step is the major revision, then minor revision. Sometimes you could only get one minor revision, sometimes it could be 2 minor revisions, but it's just the way it is. The editor wants to ensure that it fully meets the requirement. They are interested in this, that's why it has gone through reviews, but they want to ensure that it is picture perfect. And then once you've responded well to the reviewers' feedback, it goes back to the reviewers, and if the reviewers think that yes, now this article meets the criteria, they would send that positive feedback to the editor. But then it's not over yet. Even now, the editor has the power to reject it, even if the reviewers think that yes, it is acceptable. Again, the editor would look into the reviewer's feedback, the response from the author. Again, the editor will look into it fully, and then if the editor feels that yes, this article is excellent, it meets the criteria, and we will accept it. And then you get an acceptance email. And then once it is accepted, hurrah, good news. Then it goes to the publishing department, and then they will proofread it, and then they will send it to you saying that, look, we've made these subtle changes. Is it okay with you? If they need any further clarification, that is where they would do it in the proofreading. So they will first do a draft version of that article and send it to you. That look, this is how it will be published. Is there anything you want to add? We've got some question. Is there anything? Please, can you clarify? Sometimes if there are any tables, so say if you've used any tables and you've cited as well, that is fine. But sometimes they would also ask whether you've sought permission from that author where you've taken this table from. So you have to contact the author where you've cited the table from. You have to request his or her permission in writing. Once you have that in writing, you send it back to them, and then they would put that table in your article. So this is the stage of proofreading where they will look into all this. And once they are happy, you as an author, you are happy, it gets published. Well, this was just to give you an idea of the publication process and the important aspects to be mindful of whilst you are already working on your manuscript. Whilst you're writing that, you need to ensure that you're you've picked your journal and you know their requirements, their word count, their referencing style. Referencing style is very important because uh, say for example you've done Harvard style of referencing and you've submitted, but then they would come back to you saying that we need Vancouver, and there are two different referencing styles, and then it becomes extremely hard. And well, it's achievable, but it is very time consuming. Then it will waste a lot of your time then. So make sure that you are following the journal requirements. So that is the key. I hope this was useful. Please feel free to share your feedback, comments on the comment box. And if you like this video, please press the like button and share it with your friends and colleagues. Thank you very much for your time. Take care. Bye bye.